Is 9.5 too many points to lay with a rookie quarterback that's only played for 5 weeks against the Seahawks team and a quarterback that's really been rolling this season? Who do you see coming out on top of this one?
See, this is an interesting game when I look at it from
Mm-hmm.
a psychological perspective because the Seattle Seahawks don't have anything to lose. I mean, if we spin it all the way back to the beginning of the year, we didn't expect the Seahawks to be at this point. We thought they'll be picking at the start of the draft. And so for them to make it to the playoffs and then have an opportunity to face a division rival who they've already faced 2 times already, who they actually played pretty close in the last matchup at home, I think they go into this game with some confidence because even though the 49ers ran for over 200 yards against them up in Seattle, Purdy played a clean game, George Kittle went off. Yet and still, like the final score was 21-13, and for the Seahawks, they feel like they're still in this game. And I think one thing you can point to is that Tyler Lockett, they thought that they may have lost him for the season. He actually came back and played the past couple of weeks, showing that that finger's not bothering him too much. And the
Mm-hmm.
one way that you can have some success against that San Francisco 49ers defense is through the air. And the Seattle Seahawks have Tyler Lockett, who's a deep threat. They have DK Metcalf. I think if Geno can protect the ball, they don't have any turnovers, no interceptions, no fumbles. They can put some stress on that San Francisco 49ers defense, especially the secondary. They can make a game out of it. So when you think at it from that perspective, is plus 9.5 too much for Seattle? It could potentially be, especially when you think about it from this perspective. I'm anxious to hear Jared on this. Will Kyle Shanahan go in with the approach to try to protect Brock Purdy and just kind of keep it tight to the vest? Because if he doesn't open up that offense too much, that could also make it to where it stays a little closer than what people would expect.
Yeah, that is an interesting point. Do they do that? Do they just protect
Agree.
Brock Purdy and use all the other pieces around him and make him just play safe? What's the game plan here?
Yeah, that's a good question. I can tell you this. Purdy's numbers right now are better than Jimmy G's in terms of the
Yeah.
analytics. And it's not a wide margin, but slightly better. And Purdy's played slightly fewer games. So there could be some volatility there if you extend that sample out to Jimmy played about 10, 11 weeks. And Brock's only played 6. So we'll see. Obviously the most important snaps to come. And I'll echo Tank's point that the one weak link of the Niners defense, like when I went into the Niners defense, I didn't find a whole lot of weak links. But the secondary, especially lately, they're a bottom 10 passing efficiency team defensively over the last 3 weeks. They allowed 34 points to Jarrett Stidham and the Raiders, 20 points to, Wentz and Heineke of the Commanders. So they were gashed a little bit there. But once we saw this line touch 10, and we've seen it kind of bounce around the 10 mark over the last few days, that's kind of the top of it, and then it got bought back down. So it seems like there's not a really strong appetite for San Francisco at that double-digit mark. And that makes sense because they were an 8.5-point favorite at home back in week 2. They won that game by 10. And that was a really good buy low spot for the Niners because it was the week after they lost to the Bears in week 1. The Bears are picking first. How about that? The Bears beat the Niners week 1 and then get the number 1 overall pick. I never would have guessed that. And then Seattle, of course, week 1, they upset the Broncos. So even at the buy low point for San Francisco, it was 8.5 at home in week 2. Now it's 9.5. So you could see some value there for Seattle. I will give you a brief history lesson because you're going to hear this a lot this week. It's tough to beat a team 3 times in the same season. Yes, a little bit. Last year, Rams lost to the Niners twice, and then they beat them in the NFC Championship game. So there you go. Tough to beat a team twice or 3 times in the same season. 2020, the Saints beat the Bucs twice during the regular season and then lost to the Bucs in the divisional round. Tampa Bay went on to win the Super Bowl that year. The Rams went on to win the Super Bowl last year. So it's kind of like that final boss of the video game. You lose to a team twice in your division, then you play them for a 3rd time in the playoffs. You win that game. You're able to go to the Super Bowl. Can Seattle repeat that feat? I don't know. There's also some instances of teams losing 3 times in the same year. 2017 Saints beat the Panthers 3 times. 2009 Cowboys beat the Eagles 3 times. 2008 Steelers beat the Ravens 3 times, went on to win the Super Bowl. So there is precedent for a team in the division winning 3 times in the same year. There's also some recent history of it not happening. But I'll kick it back to you for this one, Tank. I think if I'm Kyle Shanahan, I trust Brock Purdy. And I say, listen, Brock, you've taken me this far. We've got all the weapons in the world. Seattle's defense isn't playing well. Go win us this game. Because I think if San Francisco plays the Kyle Shanahan not to lose strategy like they did in the Super Bowl against the Chiefs, that might be a recipe for an upset here.